Well, hello there, folks, and welcome into the October 7th, 2020 edition of polling results and kind of what we're looking at with the presidential polls here. So we're going to look at the presidential polls that came out today, is what we do every day. We're going to look at all the ones that were added yesterday. And then actually I thought we could kind of get some debate going maybe in the comment section, and I really want to hear from you guys. I don't really want to call it debate. I just want to hear your guys' opinion on essentially this article. We're going to read through this, and I thought this was really interesting to kind of read through because this is what a lot of people are thinking when they look at the polls. It says, yes, Clinton had a big lead in 2016, but this isn't 2016. I thought this was a very interesting article, and I would love to kind of hear your guys' opinion after we go through this article in the comment section on what your opinion is on the polls. Do you think they matter at all? Do you think they have, do you think they matter at all? That's whatever they want to hear. Or do you think they don't matter at all? Do you think they matter a little bit, a lot, things like that? I think polls used to matter a lot, but because of what happened in 2016, I think a lot of people kind of lost faith in polls for whatever reason because of just what happened in that 1 year essentially. And so it's interesting because we're going to look at some of these polls, and Biden's up big in a lot of these polls. We're seeing that. And so you definitely have a crowd that says the polls don't matter. Biden is still going to lose or still could lose. You have other folks saying, as long as people show up to the, election essentially and actually do their voting or vote by mail or whatever, he'll win. So it's interesting. I would really like to hear you guys' opinion. As always, just so you know, I have two big YouTube channels. One's called Financial Education. That's called Financial Education 2. They are stock market related channels. I'm not registered to vote. I don't vote. I don't ever want to, push any political agenda against my audiences over in my stock market space. So let's get started here. Let's get rolling with kind of looking at these polls and what's going on here. So right off the bat here, we got this one out of Pennsylvania, October 4th through the 5th. And this one was just added yesterday. We're just going to look at the ones added yesterday that are B or higher pollster grades. This one's from Emerson College, and this one has Biden only up 3 here, essentially, in this particular one. Only 688 participants in this one here. Look at this one, high ground. Biden's only up 1 in that one. So that one's really, really close. That one's out of Arizona. It was done between September 28th and October 5th. Okay, so very intriguing. Then we see Biden up huge in a lot of these USC polls here, 11, 12, 11 there. We have an interesting one out of North Carolina. We know that's going to be a big one, right? North Carolina, this was done from October 2nd through the 4th. Today I'm recording this October 7th, and this one obviously just came out yesterday. So in terms of this one out of North Carolina, 1,200 plus participants, and this one has Biden up 3. So slight lead for Biden, but it's not like, we're seeing a lot of Bidens, 10, 11, somewhere around there. When you're talking about 1, 3, this is where things could get interesting, right? Florida, October 1st through the 4th. This one's out of the University of North Florida, 3,100. Biden up 6 there. Survey USA, an A pollster grade for this one. This one was done from October 1st through the 4th. This one has Biden up 10 in Florida, okay? 1,100 participants in that one. So that one's a big Biden lead. Two of the biggest Biden leads we're going to see here are the CNN ones that were done here. Biden up 15 and Biden up 16. Those are obviously massive, but limited folks in those ones, just to put it that way. We have this one out of Pennsylvania, A+ pollster grade. Monmouth University, 500 participants. Biden up huge in those. Look at this one out of Alaska Survey Research, 676 here, and Trump up 4 there in Alaska. We see this one out of New Mexico. This one was done from September 30th through October 1st, but that just came out. 886 participants in this one. This one had Biden up 14. Arizona here, September 24th through the 29th. This one was just released yesterday, though, finally. 800 participants. This one had Biden up 4. New Mexico, Arizona, we'll see what happens. New Hampshire is another important one, obviously, right? This one has Biden up 9 here. General ballot, this one was done. And this one has Democratic up 8. We're kind of just focusing on the presidential side of things. So, what we're seeing here is fairly consistent with what we saw in yesterday's video that was done on October 6th in relation to the presidential election polls, right? Biden up big in a lot of markets. Some markets, Trump's up, but it's very few and far between. And it's something if it's even like a close one, right? Like only a +3 or something like that. So we're seeing pretty consistently as of right now. Now, a lot can change between now and the next month. The election's in a month from now. So, a lot can change between now and then. And I thought this was really interesting because this is what a lot of people are asking themselves. This is what I really want to hear your guys' opinion on in that comment section. It says, yes, Clinton also had a bad lead or a big lead in 2016, but this isn't 2016. You don't often see the number 57% in national late presidential election polling, maybe when measuring support among some demographic group, but not overall. The last time a presidential candidate received at least 57% of the actual vote was 1984, when Ronald Reagan's re-election bid earned him more than 500 electoral votes. Things don't really happen anymore. Things like that don't really happen anymore. By the way, Ronald Reagan at that point, you couldn't touch Reagan at that point. I mean, Reagan at that point, man, mid-'80s, it was like he was looked up to as like a god. I mean, even a lot of Democrats really liked Reagan. I mean, that's how great a lot of people saw Reagan at that time. If you were a Republican, you were 100% on Reagan's side, and even a lot of Democrats were on Reagan's side, and then almost everybody that was in the middle was on Reagan's side. I mean, that man was, at that time period, people just absolutely loved him. I mean, even looking back, a lot of people have, believe he was one of the best presidents in modern history. It's all up for debate, but I definitely know a lot of people that, still look at him as kind of like a legend, a presidential legend, let's put it that way, of modern history. And yet here was CNN and its polling partners, SSRS, releasing a poll Tuesday morning showing Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden leading President Trump by 16 points, with Biden earning the support of 57% of respondents. Now it's hyper-polarized 2020. CNN's poll has Biden getting nearly 6 in 10 votes nationally. To call this surprising is an understatement. It didn't take long for people to dump cold water on this, obviously, because people are looking back at, mid-October 2016. After all, CBS News released a poll showing Hillary Clinton leading Trump by 14 points. And as we know, how that obviously turned out. Hillary Clinton, if I recall, I think she got the popular vote by, I think it was like 3 million. So I think popular vote-wise, she won easily, but she still lost in Electoral College. That's what matters in the end. The central lesson from 2016 for many observers was things can change dramatically and rapidly, and nothing should be taken for granted, which is true in the broadest sense of advice. But it is more important to recognize that the 2020 race has not generally mirrored the race in 2016. It's important to recognize that Trump is now in a much worse position than he was 4 years ago. Parallels aside, I think arguments could be made both ways there. I think there's some folks out there that believe President Trump's in a stronger position than he was 4 years ago. That's all, at the eyes of the beholder, as they say when it comes to that. And, when it came to Hillary Clinton, the email stuff was definitely, I think, something that was a big factor. We'll never know exactly how much that swayed voters to either, just choose not to vote for her or decide to vote for Trump. We'll never know the truth on that whole scenario, but that absolutely was a massive thing. And then when all of a sudden, Comey and all those folks over there, all of a sudden last minute, they hey, we're going to look back into that. I think that absolutely swayed the election at some sort of level. We just don't know what type of level that was, okay? So, I would love to kind of hear from you guys as far as that goes. The story of the 2016 election was wild swings in support. That Clinton-led Trump was consistent, but the margin of that lead varied widely. In the last 150 days of the contest, the range of margins between Clinton and Trump spread across more than 10 percentage points. That's insane, okay? That's absolutely insane. With Clinton seeing wider and narrower leads over the course of the year, the race ended with a narrower lead. Narrow enough that Trump rung in the Electoral College victory out of the contest. By contrast, the 2020 race has been remarkably stable. Biden's lead has never been less than 6 points or more than 10 points. It's just a steady lead, as unaffected by the wild events of the year. You know, and if you think about Joe Biden, I mean, there's nothing really that crazy about Joe Biden, positively or negatively. People don't really look at Joe Biden from the Democratic side as much of, if you think about the last Democratic president, right, Barack Obama, I mean, there was just a real sense of excitement around Barack Obama. I don't feel that sense of excitement around Joe Biden. However, it's like, stable Joe, and he doesn't, make you jump for joy when you hear him do a speech or something like that. But at the same time, you're not, at least a lot of folks that are voting aren't turned off if they're thinking about potentially voting for one or the other. So he's not really a polarizing figure. I guess that's the best way to put it. He's not really a polarizing figure. And I can just, like I said, Obama, people loved Obama. I mean, still to this day, I see people from time to time wearing Barack Obama shirts. You know what I mean? There was just, that love for him. Probably not there with Biden, but at the same time, you don't have to be that charismatic to win an election. You don't. You just have to get more electoral college votes than the other individual. That's all it takes. The stability of the margins in the 2020 race has been remarkable, even in the context of the past 5 elections. In 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2016, there was at least at some point a tie in the polling average for the last 150 days of the race. Not this year. This year, there hasn't even been a moment in which Biden's lead was as narrow as 5 points. That is, look at that there. This shows you the frequency of margins in national polling averages. Jeez. Margins can be deceptive. The CBS News poll showing Clinton with a 14-point lead isn't really comparable with the new CNN poll, in part because her support in it was 52%. The issue for Trump wasn't that Clinton was outpacing him. It was that 38% of voters planned to support him in that moment. Clinton had a big lead, but relatively modest support. Biden's 57% support is much more robust. While CNN's poll is currently an outlier, though of course that could change, the gap between Biden's support and Trump's is consistent with past polls from this cycle. If we look at the average levels of support for the candidates in 538's data, we see a massive gap between Trump and Biden in 2020. Normally, the range of support would be seen by the candidates and have some overlap, meaning one candidate's highest level of support is higher than the other candidate's lowest level of support. In 2020, this hasn't been the case. In 538's average, Biden never has been below 49.5% support in the last 150 days of the race, and Trump's never been above 43.6%, a nearly 6-point gap. I definitely think that's something to look out there. Very, very interesting. So what happened in 2016? Well, for one thing, there was more solid third-party candidates. For another, there was a much bigger pool of undecided voters. And, one thing that never really gets talked about on top of the email situation with Hillary Clinton and that whole situation, also you had kind of a divide in the Democratic Party. Let's put it that way, because of what happened with Bernie Sanders. A lot of people were very passionate about Bernie Sanders and really, poured their hearts out for Bernie Sanders. And a lot of people felt like Bernie Sanders was cheated on the Democratic side. So that led a lot of Democrats to have, I guess you can say, not support Hillary Clinton the way they might have another Democratic candidate, because they felt like their person, Bernie Sanders, was cheated out of that race. And so that led a lot of folks to say, we're not even gonna vote for Clinton. And that, I think, left a lot of people on the sideline. And a lot of those middle people looked at that and how kind of sketchy that was. And then you got the emails on top, and they just were like, maybe I won't vote, or maybe I'll take a chance and go with Trump in this whole situation. So, this is really, really intriguing. If you want to check out the whole article, it's the Washington Post. You can type it in. I think I just typed in presidential election polls, went to the news category in Google, and then you should see it up here, Washington Post, especially if you're watching this within the next day or two. It's really, really intriguing. It goes a lot more into detail looking at all this. I really want to hear your guys' opinion on this. So at the end of the day, that's really why I brought this up. I mean, it's a really, good in-depth article, but really I just want to hear your guys' opinion on this down there in that comment section. Do you think this is another 2016 situation, or do you think 2020 is its own thing? I would really love to hear from you guys as always. Hope you enjoyed this. We're going to do another one tomorrow and the next day and I'll keep you guys up to date on the presidential polls. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you don't mind, smash a thumbs up. That helps us support the channel in a massive, massive way. I appreciate each and every one of you, and have a great day. Peace.